Hi, this is Mr. Max with Sankofa Mathematics. So this is the paper that was written on the 10th of January. This was 2022. This paper was actually meant for last year's grade 11s, but due to unforeseen circumstances in our country, we had the leakage of papers and the kids had to write now. Well, of course, let me just get down to the crux of the matter. I would suggest that perhaps you also grab your calculator because we'll be using this quite a lot. All right, so the first question you can see, it says you're supposed to calculate, and then you must give your full calculator value. So I hope that we all use our calculators wisely and just try to follow the steps what I'm doing here. Okay, so basically it's a calculator that you can do everything that is there, and that should be the correct answer, and you just go ahead and you write that answer in there without even having much of a problem. So it's 1285.42 and then it's 3302. Okay, you get 2 marks for just that, right? The question tells you must give you a full calculator display. All right, so that's what you do. Don't round anything there. Nothing to be afraid of for that question. Don't try to do too much, just answer the question. Part 2, well, you're supposed to write this as a common fraction, and then you simplify it. Again, you were using a calculator in the exam, right? So don't be afraid to pull out your calculator, clear that display, press 0.36 or 0.36. It gives you the answer, which is 9/25, and that's all. Okay, and then it says you must write this as a percentage. Now, well, you can do this many ways. You can multiply that. Well, you should get 60%. Right. Good. So you have a list of numbers here, and then from this you're supposed to write down a prime number as well as a square number. Now, you should realize when you know your list of primes that 13 is a prime number, okay, or even 109 is a prime number. Any one of those two, just write one. Okay, the square number is nothing there but 49. 49 comes from 7 times 7. Right, so again, if you have something like this, you're struggling in the exam, go ahead again, grab your calculator. Okay, don't give yourselves a headache. So it says you're supposed to write as an ordinary number, so you're going to say 5.2, and I'm using this times 10 raised to the x, and then you just go ahead and type -4 in there, okay, on your calculator, and then you change that because we want it to be on an ordinary number, but you see it still gives me the answer in standard form, which is what it is. So I'm just going to go to the setup here, and I want to change the mode. So I'm going to shift because I want the setup, and I want to change, so I'm going to press 8 for normal, and then it gives you an option of 1 or 2, and then I'm just going to pick 2. Right, so now this answer is nothing going to be 0.03052. So what it does now, it gives my answer all the way as an ordinary number, so 0.00052. Okay, so that's the answer for that particular question. Well, for this ones, I suggest you grab a calculator. Maybe you change them to a decimal, and then you can go ahead and look at what is 17 over 30. So 17 over 30. Well, it's always easy if you have some sort of method. Okay, we'll look at that when we mark. So it's 0.56, and obviously that 6 is recurring. So this value here, this is 0.5666 and so on. All right, and this one here, if we want to know what that one is, and that one is 7/12. So again, let's just clear that. So that's 7/12. 7/12. That also gives you 0.583. And the 3 goes on, so this is 0.583. Okay, so you can now determine from looking at the place value. So you can see this is big because that's a 5 tens, 5 tens, 6. So this is bigger, but you have to start smaller. So this number is the biggest one, so I know that 3/5 will be over here. All right, the second one after that is obviously going to be this one here, because now if you look at the hundreds position, you realize that that has 800s, well, there's 600. So 17 over 30 becomes, actually 17 over 30 is much smaller. Okay, so big. So 17 over 30 will be the smallest number. And the last one there that will be big will be 7 over 12. Okay, so whatever you do, write down your original numbers. Okay, or the original numbers. Don't write your method. Okay, you will get a mark here for method, and normally we'll look at that. Okay, if your arrangement is not proper. Okay, so that brings me to the next question. Again, don't waste time in the examination. They have made plenty of space available for you right here, but if you have a Casio calculator and your calculator has got a button, and I'm going to show you the button I'm talking about. So the number is 380, so you press 380, then you press equal to, and then you press shift, and then you press this one here where there's little fractions there. Okay, that factorization, that's why you press shift. Most Casios have this anyway. And then it's 2 squared times 5 times 19. So it's 2 squared times 5 times 19. And that's all. You have now written that number in as a product with prime factors. Okay, so we'll do the same. So we're supposed to find the highest common factor. So we know that 380 is what we had, 2 squared times 5 times 19. So we need to know what is 114 going to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and we grab our calculator. So 114 equal shift fact. Well, that's 2 times 3 times 19. You see that? So it's 2 times 3 times 19. So we're looking for highest common factor. So we're looking for a small number, right? So I'm going to choose the ones with the smallest, okay, smallest indices. So smallest powers, maybe. So I say that. So I'm going to be between these 2 squared, I'm going to choose 2. And then 3 and 5 is not a common, then I'm going to choose 19. So 2 times 19. So the answer here should nothing be 38. 38 is the number that is the highest common factor of 380 as well as 114. Okay. On a certain day, this is a lot of numbers in this question paper. So if you know your topics in mathematics, you realize that this paper has got over 30 marks. Okay, this question only under the topic numbers and operations. So it is very important that you understand that very first topic that you normally start with at school, because a lot of these questions are basically numbers and operations. Okay, right, but anyway, let's get back to the question. So here you have a certain day, they say a shop sold 80% of 900 copies, and you're supposed to calculate the number of copies that were left, the ones that were not sold. So not sold would be 20%. Okay, so you can therefore say 20% of 900. So that takes you directly to the answer, which should be 180. So ideally, other students would maybe go and say, well, what is 80% of 900? And then that should give you about 720. And then to find this answer, then they will say the ones that are not sold, the ones that are left, will then be 900 minus 720, which also gives you the 180. Either way, whatever you do, you should arrive at this answer. Okay, question 8. You have got the Khalifa started exercising at 10:15 and finished at 5 minutes past 11 the same day. So all happened in the morning. 24-hour clock. You're supposed to find how long. Now, you can use so many techniques here. You should be able to get to 15 minutes. Okay, it's not really a question you should be struggling with at your level. You should be able to know what the answer is to this question. Right, 50 minutes. That is the time. Okay. So obviously, for those of you who want to go the long way, you are going to take the 11:05 and you take away the 10:15. The problem, you can't subtract 5 minutes or 15 minutes from 5 minutes, so you're going to go and borrow an hour there. So you're going to borrow an hour. So when you go borrow an hour, that becomes 10, and then you add that 60 minutes to this 5 minutes here. Can you see that? And when you now have that, you can actually go and subtract. And when you subtract 65 minus 15, well, that gives you 50 minutes. But as I said, that's long. You should be able to find that answer. This question, well, this is what I advise, because in the examination, you don't really have much time to make a lot of mistakes. Grab your calculator, okay? And we're going to use a little trick here. So you're going to say shift, because one that mixed one there, nah? That's what you do. So 2, and then you put 3 upon 5. So ideally what I'm saying here is we're going to find what the answer is, minus 1/4. So we have now the correct answer. So the correct answer should be 47 upon 20. Well, that is an improper fraction, okay? So 47. So you have got 47 over 20. So that tells me something about the LCM, right? And another thing, you can actually simplify this number further, because it's an improper fraction, by pressing shift, and then you press the fraction button again. So it's 2 and 7/20. So it's 2 and 7 upon 20. Right, so now, in order for you to do that, you're probably going to make this an improper fraction, which becomes 2 times 5, which is 10, plus 3. So you're going to go and say 13 over 5 minus 1/4. Well, still nothing here. So, but you're realizing something, that the 20 over here, okay, that is the LCM. So you put everything upon 20, okay? So 5 goes into 24 times, and 4 times 5 gives you 52. 4 goes in 25 times, and then you have a 5 here. When you do this, this is why you get the 47 upon 20. But okay, leave your fraction and as an improper fraction, which is 2, or as a mixed number rather, which is 2 and 7 over 20. Don't waste too much time on that question. Question 10. Oveni was given 3,500. She invested this at a local bank, and it's compound interest. You can use the formula if you know the formula. You do not get a mark for writing the formula. Okay, the principal, which is 1 plus the R, which is always a percentage, so point N, which is the number of years. So in order for us to find the amount, because this is what this question is asking, it's asking for the total amount. And it's very important that you pick on that now. So it asks you what is the total amount. So which means when you use this formula for compound interest, it takes us directly to total amount. So it's 3,500. Then you have 1, and the rate is 4.5%. So 4.5 upon 100. And it is for 2 years. All right. Just as it's there, grab your calculator, and then you punch that stuff right into your calculator. So it's 3,500, and then you have 1 plus 4.5%, and you close that bracket, and you should square that answer. Okay, right, so you get a value of 3,822.0875. Okay, so it is 3,822, comma, so you can remember, 0875, 0875. So from here, we accept 2 decimal places or 3 significant figures. Okay, so I'm going to have the 3 significant figures as 3,820. That would be the 3 significant figures. But again, because it's money, you can also give it as $3,822.09. Okay, well, anything rounding to what we are looking for. Okay, 3 marks for that. Of course, there are many ways, but if you know the formula, you are 100% okay. Right, in the spaces provided, you have a number there. You're supposed to write each one correct to 1 significant figure. So the first non-zero digit, so that one becomes 0.5. That one becomes 3,000, because that 4 cannot make that a 4,000. This one here is 9.8, so that 9 is the first one, so it's going to be nothing but 10. And this one is 24 points, so first non-zero digit is 2, that 4 cannot make that 30, so the answer is 20. So that's what you have, and now they're asking you to take this answer and answer part B. And when you answer part B, grab your calculator again, so you get your calculator, fraction value, you have 0.5 times 3,000, let's get rid of that decimal, 3,000, and this should always be, well, you can already put 30 here if you wanted to, but 10 plus 20. Okay, if you use this other type of calculators, right, just want to show you the trick there. When you use this other type of calculator, it's always better if you can put brackets okay, because the calculator will not be able to give you the correct answer if you use these older versions, right? Older versions, you're probably okay to do that, because you should either way get 250 as an answer. Okay, let's continue. We're going to do question 12. In a hospital, they're saying the ratio of baby boys to, so I'm going to have to say boys versus girls. So boys are first and girls, so boys is 3 is to 2. And then they say there were 180 boys and we need to find how many girls there were. Okay, right. So again, so many things. This is direct. So you should know what the number is. Well, the number is 60. So when you multiply here by 60, you also multiply the side by 60. Either way, you should be able to get the answer, whatever method you are using, to get to 120 girls. Okay, question 13. This is money. They say Jürgen went to visit his granny in Germany. The exchange rate is, well, I'm going to put the euro here. 1 euro is equivalent to 19.6 million dollar, and he had 5,500 million dollar. So how much would that be? Well, you can do cross multiplication if you wish to. The nice thing about that, it's going to definitely tell you something, so you can map this. If a lot of you can do that, but you should realize if you same currency you divide. So in any case, it's going to be 5,500. Okay, that's what you have, and you're going to say that's multiplied by 1 equals to 19.6x. So again, in order for you to find the unknown, you will have to take that 5,500 and you simply divide that by 19.6. So you grab your calculator and, well, it should give you 280.6122449. Well, it's quite a big number. And you can give it as 281, and that would be correct to 3 significant figures. Or, because it's money, you can say 280.61, okay? And that would be euros. Anyway, whatever you do, it's just as you get to that answer. Okay, we are supposed to convert change. So there's a lot of interesting facts about this question that I perhaps will encourage you to know. So firstly, you should know your conversions a bit. You should know that 1 kilometer is nothing but 1,000 meters. And 1 hour is nothing but 3,600 seconds. You got that? So 108. Let's just write that 100 nicely. Okay. So 108 kilometers. To change it to meters, you're going to have to multiply that by 1,000. And if you have 1 hour and you want to change it to seconds, you will have to say that 1 hour and you multiply that by 3,600. Okay, so you have 108,000 over 3,600. So that is what we're working with. So you grab your calculator again in order for you to find your answer. That is going to be nothing but 108,000. Okay, and that you're going to divide by 3,600, and that gives you 30. So the correct answer is 30, and our answer is 30 meters per second. Alright, so it takes quite a lot of things for you to know. Right, you have something else here. You have got a map in real life. I always like to look at what unit do they want the answer. They want the answer in kilometers. You need to understand this is all centimeters versus centimeter. So this is saying on a map, okay, versus real life. But in real life, we don't talk about 280,000 centimeters. So 1 centimeter on a map. So what is it equivalent to in real life? So you can do this many ways. So I know that on the map it's centimeters, and in real life it has to be kilometers. So let me, before I get that, let me change 280,000 centimeters to kilometers. So it takes you back to what is 1 kilometer in terms of centimeter. And you should know your conversions of it. So kilometer to meter, well, that's 1,000. Meters to centimeters, that's 100. So if you go all the way from kilometers to centimeters, 1 kilometer is equal to 100,000 centimeters. That means to change this 280,000 centimeters to kilometers, you'll have to divide by 100,000. So when you divide that by 100,000, you will have what is the real thing in real life. Okay? So the answer therefore is 2.8 kilometers. So now I've changed my scale. So the only thing that I need to do is read further. They are saying the road is 4.8 centimeters. So you're going to put that under centimeters, but because that's under the map. And when you do that, you say 4.8 centimeters, and you're going to try to find what that is in real life. So you can go ahead and cross multiply. What you're going to realize is what you have to do here. You have to say 4.8 times 2.8. And that answer will be the answer in terms of kilometer. So we're going to have 4.8, multiply that by 2.8. Okay? So that gives you 13.44. So 13.44, that is the correct answer. 13.4, anything right in that regard. Okay, it's quite a lot of work, but you should be able to get this answer anyway. Question 16. We have got number of students who entered the quiz competition some year in the past, and perhaps you should read this carefully if you don't realize that you're dealing with reverse percentages. There are a total of 950 Untitled students. They entered the quiz competition in 2021. This number, this 950, okay, is an increase, and that is where I'm very much interested in. I'm going to have to do that first. So this represents an increase of 125% of whatever the entry was in 2019. So in 2019, we expect a less number. That's why we had to do that. And you will understand why reverse percentages comes in handy. So this is 2021. And we are looking for 2019. So we are going back. The fact that we are going back means you'll be dealing with nothing but reverse percentages. All right, where the 100 is on top. Okay, now in order for you to understand how that works, if I cross multiply here, I will have 125x equals to 100 times 950. Are you with me? And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide that 100 by 125. Do you now see where the reverse percentage issue is coming from? Good. So in terms of a lot of students go directly to this method as long as they have added this one here, because we are dealing with increase. Whatever you do, just make sure that you understand the question. Okay, so we expect a number that is less. Hence, when you multiply by a proper fraction, you're going to get an answer that's less. So if you did not add the 25%, you would be dealing with an improper fraction. That is like you have a 100 over 25, and the answer will not be correct. Okay, so if you did not add, you would be dealing with a scenario where you would be, because it's reverse percentage, where you would say 100 over 25. But anything that you multiply by an improper fraction, okay, becomes big. And that's not what we're looking for, because the scenario says that this number in 2021 is an increase, so it must be more than whatever is under. You can see from my concept of equivalent fractions here, the 950 over x is equal to 125, which is the bigger number, over 100, which is the smaller number, so x must therefore be a smaller number. So that's why you had to add, okay, because it said increase. Had it said decrease, though, you would then definitely be subtracting that 25 there. Anyway, it's time for us to get that answer. So our answer would therefore be 100 upon 125, and then you will simply multiply that with 950. And that gives you 600 or 760, which is what we are looking for. 760 students. Okay, for 3 months. So it took quite a lot of thinking, in this question, and you should be able to get to that answer. Right, question 17, this again straightforward question for 1 mark. This algebra is not that complicated. So x is equal to 8 divided by 10. Well, you can leave your answer 0,8, okay? Or some people, they prefer to write it as 4 over 5 or whole number 10. Well, any one of those will do. Question 18, expand means you must remove the brackets, okay? So you're going to multiply 6 times 2a minus 6 times 5. So that's going to be 12a minus 30. And that is all she wrote. Okay, so here you're supposed to simplify. So I'll suggest that you perhaps write the like terms together and the other like terms. Okay, so it's easier then for you to know that. Well, that is 4f. Add 8 more to them. That will give you that. And that should give you minus 9. So please make sure that you know minus 2 minus 7 gives you minus 9. Right, write as separate logs. I hope you're familiar with logs. So this is log 2 plus log x cubed. And log 2 plus that 3 then comes in front, power log, and that's all you have to do in that question. Solve the inequality. Well, you must be a bit careful whatever method you decide to use. So I've got 3p here. I'm going to take all the like terms together, so to speak, and I'm going to add. So I hope you see that here I've added 10 because it was subtracted on the other side, and here I have subtracted the minus 7p because it was a positive 1 here. Okay, so just know that. So when you do this here, you're going to get minus 4p. And when you do that, you get a 12. So there's a little problem here. The moment you are dividing, when you're dealing with inequalities, the moment you are dividing or multiplying by a negative, the inequality sign should change. So now you change that, okay? So that's going to be, so the answer here should be p is less than or equal to negative 3. Please, this is not an equation, so do not write equal signs there. Right, question 22. You have got 4 terms, and they say they form a sequence. And one of the things that you should perhaps identify, that is the first term, second term, third term, fourth term. And just to be on the safe side, if you subtract and you want to see, is this an AP or a GP, geometric or arithmetic progression? Well, if you subtract here, you get an 8. If you do the same for 21 minus 13, you get an 8. So therefore, this is an AP. Okay, so what do we know about an AP? The first term is minus 3. The common difference is 8. So our formula to find the nth term, T sub n, which is a plus n minus 1 times d. So our a being, so our T sub n is going to be negative 3 plus n minus 1, and our d value is 8. So from here, we're nearly home. Just multiply out that in order for you to get minus 3. In fact, let me not write that minus 3 yet, because there are going to be quite some like terms there. So it's minus 3 minus 8 plus 8n. Right? Eventually, this should give you an answer of 8n minus 11. Okay, but I believe anywhere there you could have already started making organic marks. You do not get marks for writing down this formula though. Okay, the formula is just guiding you in order to know you're dealing with an AP. Okay, question 24, you've got 2 functions. Then the first one, they say you are supposed to find the value of g when you put negative 3 everywhere where you have an x. So in simple terms, for you go to g of negative 3, please be careful, you must put brackets there. So that's going to give you nothing but 9. Okay, then you're supposed to find the inverse of function f. So function f, I will just write it what it is. So it's y equals to 3 minus 3x. Okay, so just replace that. Okay, because that is nothing but equals to y. Okay, f of x is equal to y. All right, so anyway, once you're here, you should remember that you are supposed to swap the letters around. And once you swap the letters around, well, now you try to make y the subject of the formula. So x should be minus 3 because in the original formula x was a positive 3 here. So equals to minus 3y. And when you make y subject, then you have x minus 3, I'm going to put it in brackets, will be divided by minus 3, which gives you y. Pretty much done here. But what I'm going to do something special. I'm going to put that minus 3 or that minus 1 over there. And just because I want to write it fancy, if you multiply these, you realize that it becomes 3 minus x upon 3. All right, and this would be the inverse of your function. But anyway, any value that you have from this particular point, you deserve a mark. Just don't leave your answer with the y. Okay, it's just a method. They say you're supposed to express g of f of x, g of f. So you take function f, and you are going to put function f into function g. Right, so function f, remember, function f is 3 minus 3x. Function g is nothing but x squared. So you're going to take the whole of this function here, the whole one of this f here, this one, right? And you're going to put it here where you have x squared. So that means g of f of x is going to be in bracket. You are going to put in that whole function 3 minus 3x. So it involves a little bit of simplification because it says you must simplify your answer. That means you have to, you must multiply out the brackets. Let's just get this correct. So that means I'm going to say, right, let's just say close that menu. And let's go back to our pen. Alright, we are going to get a nice, let's just say selection. Technology here, still it. We don't want to do anything. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm figuring that one out. So I'm going to put that down there for a minute. Use this one here, close that menu, go back here. And then we're going to get our pen back. What are we doing here? Okay, good. So I was supposed to right click. Okay, that was a small commercial break, if you wish. That is 3 minus 3x and 3 minus 3x again. Alright, so that's going to give you 9 if you multiply out these 3 times 3. And then you multiply that over, you're going to get minus 9x. And if you multiply this, gives you minus 9x. And if you multiply that, that's going to be positive 9x squared. So I'm just going to simplify this expression. So it is 9x squared minus 18x, because these two in the middle are like terms, no? Plus 9. And that is how that question should be done. Right, we are getting to question 24. Again, it says you are supposed to factorize completely for 1 mark. It's not a problem. What they have here and here in common is x, and you're going to have x minus 16. That's it. All right. Here, you should know this, okay? You are looking for 2 numbers. When you multiply them, it should give you 39. And those numbers happen to be, both of them must be negative. And it's nothing but 3 times 13. And 3 times 13 will give you that 39, negative 3, negative 13. If you multiply them, I hope by this time you know how to factorize quadratic expressions. Okay. Right, that brings you to question 25. Perhaps I should make it a little bit smaller. And the reason being, we're supposed to look for the area, the total distance traveled. And in a speed time graph, if you want to find a distance traveled, you will have to deal with the area under the graph, because the area under a linear graph. Okay, this whole area here, this area here, in a speed time graph, it represents the distance. Okay, give the distance traveled. Okay, so this, if you look at it nicely, you have two triangles and a rectangle, or you have a trapezium. Yeah? So it's kind of like a, if you remember trapezium, right? So that's A, that's B, you will have a height, right? The way to calculate that, this distance from here is nothing but 1 unit, okay? Look at the distance from here all the way here is nothing but 3 units. So if I'm dealing with my trapezium, okay, so it's going to be 1 plus 3, and I'm going to multiply by the height, and the height is 30, and then you divide that answer by 2. Alright, so that in a nutshell will give us the answer to our problem. So from looking at that formula, the area would be 4 times 30, half of that. Okay, so that answer will be 60 if you get it. Okay, 60 kilometers. So please revise the work on speed time graphs. You want to find the distance, it's the area under the graph. You could have made so many shapes here. You could have decided, again, you don't really want to wish to waste a lot of time. You have two triangles, all right? It's really weird. And then you have this rectangle type of thing again. And you could divide it. You say that's 1, and that's 2, and that's 3, and all those areas together will still give you that 60. Right, anyway, let's get to question 26. Now, question 26 is an interesting question because it's variation. They are saying that m is directly proportional to the square root of n. So, in a nutshell, we're going to create an equation, but first we're going to look for the constant of variation. So, we're going to choose the values here that are complete. So, when m is 3, the square root, this is multiplication, of 4. Once you work this out, it's k times 2, which is 3. This gives you 2k is equal to 3. So from this, we can actually calculate the value of k. K is nothing but 3 over 2, or k is 1.5. So our equation is going to be m equals to 1.5 times the square root of n. But m and n will be changed here. They are saying we're supposed to find first s, small letter s here, which is like where the place of m would be. So s would equal to 1.5 multiplied by the square root of 9. Okay? So in order for you to calculate the value of s, you will be saying s is 1.5 times 3. Okay? I hope everybody gets that one. So when you do that, you get 4.5, and that is the value of s. If you use the same formula and you want to find, because here they ask you now to find t, all right? So I'm just going to squeeze it in here because they want us to find t. So the formula, remember, is m equals 1.5 times the square root of n. But they ask us to find t. So t is what's going to come under here. So we have the square root of t times 1.5, but we have a value of 27 here. So this is the formula that I'm going to work. I'm going to take that all the way. Okay, so I'm just going to, because I'm running out of space, so I have 27 is equal to 1.5 times the square root of t. In order for me to isolate the square root of t, I'll have the 27 divided by 1.5. I hope you're still with me. Okay? And you can go ahead then and grab your calculator in order for you to see what is 27 divided by 1.5. Well, that gives you 18. Are you with me so far? So this ultimately then gives you the square root of t is equal to 18. In order to get rid of that square root, you will have to say t, which is square root of t. You will be squaring both sides. Are you with me? Therefore, t will equal to 18 times 18. And 18 times 18 is nothing but 324. That is the value of t. Okay, you can always go back and check what I did if it's a little bit confusing, but it's variation. Okay. Right. We have got question 10 here. Again, perhaps I'll make this a bit smaller, just so that you can see something I want to a little bit explain here. Maybe if you would follow what I'm doing, I'm interested in the first inequality here. This inequality says that y is greater than x. So I'm going to choose a point. Let's choose, for example, any point. I could have chosen a point here, but I'm going to choose this particular point here. Are you with me? Okay. So what is the x value of that point? Well, it's 1. So this point here has a value of x. Okay, let me just get my pen in order. This point has a value of x, which is 1, the value of y, which is 4. So I'm going to work with that point. Remember, I chose that point there, okay? 1, 4. Right, so when I look at my inequality, and y is, so I'm using the point 1, 4. And you should know that the first one here is the x value, and that is the y value. Okay, it's quite a bit messy, but you get the idea. Alright, so the first point here will be x, and that is y. So from this point, just this point alone, you see that 4 is greater or equal to 1. So it's true. So this region will be true for that inequality. But what if you come to this inequality and I say take the same point? If I say x, which is 1, and I add my y, which is 4, is that number going to be less than 7? Yes, it's going to be 5 less than. So the region that makes it true, okay, is here, where this region, this whole region here is the region that makes this inequality true. Okay, because it's true when I pick the point. I could have decided to take a point here, or any point here, and any point here. But now I know that where the point lies, that will make my inequality true for both of them. So I'm going to shade the unwanted regions. So when you shade now, all right, because the question asks you to shade, you are going to shade. Let me make this a little bit more smaller, okay, just to bring in my graph properly. So when you shade, perhaps we are going to use this. Let's make it a bit thicker. Okay, very strong. So you're going to shade this part here, okay, because that part is not true. So this is what you're going to shade. And it will also not be true for this part here. So you're also going to shade this part here. At the end of the day, you would be left with a region R, which happens to be this particular region. Okay, and that is where your R is supposed to be. Okay, so you just pick a random point and you see, because you're supposed to shade the unwanted regions. So, the unwanted regions. Right. Hope you got that one. And for 2 marks in the exam, you scored that. Right, question 28 though. It says that an exterior angle of a regular polygon. So we don't know the name of the polygon, we don't know how many sides this polygon have. But essentially, let's say you have a polygon like so. I'm not just going to draw part of it. It talks about this angle on the outside. So this angle on the outside here is 24. Okay, so one of the things you should know, a polygon, when you go around, the exterior angles, they all add up to 360. So in order for us to find the number of sides, we are going to divide 360 by 24. Okay, and well, you should get an answer of 15 sides. You can grab a calculator for that if you don't get it. But it will be a 15-sided polygon. Straightforward. getting to the answer. Right, question 29, a little bit on transformation. All right, so here I perhaps have to also make this a bit smaller. They say for 3 marks you're supposed to describe the single transformation that maps, make this perhaps a little bit thicker. So it's going to be a rotation, because it's like for me now it's rotating in this direction. If I do that, that will be 90 degrees clockwise, which is written minus 90, or if it goes the other way around all the way until it gets to that, that will be 270 degrees anti-clockwise. So you can write down the words. You see, when you say clockwise, you put a minus in front. When you say anti-clockwise, it's positive. It's basically how that is. 1 mark for that. And then you give the center of rotation, and you can see the center of rotation is just there, and the center of rotation is 3,4. Right. One of the things I should perhaps encourage you to look at when you're dealing with this question is perhaps if this little business here is confusing where you are writing this down, because it's just worth 1 mark, right? That's 1 mark, and that's 1 mark, and that's 1 mark. Perhaps you can just say here 90 degrees clockwise, okay, or 270 degrees counterclockwise. And when you do this, then what you're going to end up with is still the same mark, but you're going to avoid the confusion that many students have, and the confusion stems from well, trying to get that color here, but seems to be playing a little movie. The confusion will come from what many students have, this minus, to know that a minus refers to a clockwise, and if it's a positive, like you don't write it rather, but it's positive, it refers to anti-clockwise. To avoid that confusion, just write down the words, and then you are good to go. Right, then there's another thing they're asking. They're saying that letter N is enlarged and the scale factor is 3. So from the origin, which is all the way here. Now what I like to do is I like to use vectors. So I'll take this point, for example, from the origin, this point here. This is the point 3,1. Can you see that? Right, I'm going to write that point down. So that's the point 3,1. And as a vector, it can be written as 3, 1. Okay? And I'm going to do that for all the points. So if I look for this point here, it's the point 3,2. All right, so the point 3,2 as a coordinate, it's 3,2. As a vector, it's 3,2, like that. Okay, I'm going to do that for all the points. This point here is the point 4,1, and the other one is 4,2. So I'm going to write from the origin. Okay, so the point, the coordinate point, I said 4,1 and 4,2. So that's a 1. The other one is 4,2, and as a vector, it's written like that. Okay, don't put fractions. Now, the important thing is the scale factor, and the reason why I'm coming into the scale factor is because I'm going to take that vector and I'm going to use the quantity of 3. So I'm going to say 3, so I'm enlarging it, and then that is 9 over 3. Okay, because we're multiplying that 3 with everything. So I'm going to do that for all of them. So here I'm going to have 3 and 3, 2. When you multiply, you get 9 over 6. If you multiply 3 times 3 and 3 times 2. And I'm going to do the same here. So it's 3, 4, 1, which is going to be 12, 3, if you do that. And when you do the last one, multiply that by 3. The 4 times the 3 and the 2 times the 3 is 12, 6. So these are going to be the points that I'm going to plot. Okay, and these are going to be the points where you can find. There's another way to do it, but this is one of them. So the point 9,3. So the point 9,3. So all the way 9,3 will be all the way up here. And the other point will be the point 9,6. So 9,6. 9,6 is 9, and then you have 6 way up there. Then you are looking for the other 2 points. So it's 12,3 and 12,6. Okay, 12,3. So 12. We have now 12,3 and 12,6. All right. So I'm going to do my drawing there. Okay. So perhaps that going to be a bit thicker, and maybe I'm going to make it red. So I'm going to have a line from there. A little bit, it's not that easy, but you get the idea. All right, so that's where my end would be, for example. And there you go. Well, and that will be 2 marks if you do that. But another way that you can test to see if you're on the right path, you can perhaps, draw a line from the origin, from here. Okay, let's just say, okay, let's take a line. And we are going to do that. You see that if I join the corresponding points, it will pass. All right, this is a little bit out here. If I do the same for this one, for example, it's going to pass. And a lot of students, they do that. It's going to pass. Well, and so does the other one there. It's all going to pass. Right, you can draw those lines and you can find your end. Okay, that's also one way of doing it. But I like to work with vectors. Good. That takes care of that particular question. Right, let's get to question 30. Now, question 30, you have got a solid shape, and it's a glass shape, and it consists of a hemisphere and a cylinder. Okay, so eventually they want you to find the volume of the glass shape. Right, so you're going to deal with two things. So first, you're going to deal with the volume of the cylinder, or if you know the formula. So I'm going to have volume of cylinder, which you know is pi r squared times height, which is, in this case, it's going to be pi times the radius, and the radius is 3 squared, times the height, which is 5. Then I'm going to have the volume of the hemisphere. Now you must be careful, all right? Hemisphere. A hemisphere is now that little part over there, okay? That's the hemisphere, right, which is that part. But the formula given here is the formula for a sphere. You get that? So you can't use this formula here. You'll have to use this formula, all right, and divide that formula by 2. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's do that. Because we're not looking for a sphere, although they give you the formula for a sphere. So in order for me to find the volume of a hemisphere, you'll be saying, whatever the formula is given, you're going to say 4,3 pi r cubed, and you are going to divide by 2. Okay, so when you divide by 2, remember, dividing by 2, I'm just going to bring this in front, is the same as saying multiplying by a half. Okay, it's the same thing. Okay, dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by a half. The reason why I do that, to simplify nicely, 2, a half times 4 to 2. I hope you're familiar that 2 goes in itself once and 2 goes there 2 times. So I've got 2 over 3 pi r cubed. So this is the formula for, or the one for the hemisphere. Okay, now just to fill in the missing values. So the hemisphere, if I have to write it here, the hemisphere would be 2 over 3 times pi times r, which is 3 cubed. All right, and I'm going to take this answer and I'm going to join these two answers together. Okay, and you can do it now, or you can write it out nicely if you want to. Okay, but of course, running out of time here, so we're going to take the one for the cylinder first. So it's going to be pi, and then you're going to multiply that by 3 squared, and you're going to multiply that by 5, and I'm going to add the one for the hemisphere, which is 2.3, and I'm going to multiply that with pi, with me, and I'm going to multiply that with 3 cubed. Oh, you can see everything. Right, so my answer is 63 pi. Right, so 63 pi. But you can also leave your answer as a decimal value, which is 197.92, blah, 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 blah. And nicely, it gives you 198. Can you see that? If you have to give your answer 3 significant figures. All right, so you can go ahead then and say, wait a minute, what about 197.92? It was 033, so on and so on and so on, which is 198. All right, so any one of these to me, so this would be 3 significant figures. All right, any one of these would be or equivalent to. We will accept that. Okay, as an answer. Good. Question 31. Now I'll pause so that you can have a little look on this question, so you can see exactly what is it that we did. I used all of my space. Remember, you are just not writing in this column here where it says for examiners. But otherwise, feel free to use everywhere on the page. Right, so we have vectors here. This one is quite straightforward. It's 1 mark, and it should not be a problem. You're going to add the components of P with the components of Q. Right, so basically what you're going to say is you're going to say minus 1, 2, you're going to add 3, you're going to add 4. Okay, and 3 minus that gives you 2, and 2 plus that gives you 6. Please don't make a fraction. All right, this is not a fraction. Okay, right, so just to be on the safe side, here we are looking for the magnitude of Q, and we use Pythagoras theorem, which you take the x value of Q. So let me just write down what the value of Q is. I think it's 3, 4. Okay, just to try to remember. Okay, 3, 4. So you're going to take the 3, you're going to square it, the 4, you're going to square it. Of course, you don't need to put brackets there, but anyway, you get 5 as an answer. Just grab your calculator and put that in there. Right, so even if you have negative values here, they all become positive when you square them. So, don't have to put brackets there. Okay, I hope we are okay so far. As well as a little bit more work to it. You have a triangle, okay, and they are saying, and it's very important information here, they say that ODE is equal to vector D, and OE is equal to vector E, as you can see, pointed out there by the arrows. And then what is most important for me is this little sentence here. And it says that DF is 2/3 of DE. So if DF is 2/3 of DE, okay, then if I take that 2/3 away, then this one here, this side should be 1/3. Okay, so they want us to find DE. So that's like going from D to E. Think of it as like a journey you're taking from going from D to E. So that DE is the same as going in this direction, which is DO, and then you're going along here, which is OE. But DE is going against vector D, so it's against what we know as OD plus OE. Right, so we know OD from what we have discovered, right, that OD is minus D and OE is E. Essentially, that is the answer, which you can go ahead and write like that. Totally up to you which one you prefer. Alright, so now you know what D is. I hope you understand. Okay, then they say the position vector of F. So what it means is we are supposed to find O OF. So let's go back to our diagram. OF, which is the distance from, say, here. There are two ways you can go. You can go OE, and then you go against whatever that is. But I'm going to go OD. Can you see that? Plus DF. Okay? So OD plus DF. Right? So I'm going to say OD plus DF. But wait a minute. DF is 2/3 of our answer we got in our previous. Can you get that? And OD is nothing but D. Okay, can you see that? The direction here? OD is nothing but D. So it's going to be then D. If I have to change this small vector D, it's going to be vector D plus 2/3 of E minus D. Right, so you just have to multiply out because the question wants you to simplify the answer. Okay, and if you multiply this out, you should definitely arrive at a very interesting answer. So my answer would therefore be T. Then I'm going to multiply this with that one minus 2/3 of D. Then multiply this one with the E plus 2/3 of E. Okay, remember there's a number in front here which is 1. So when you do that, you're going to get 1/3 of D plus 2/3 of E. Right, just carefully take that approach. Right, so there are many other ways that you could have arrived at this answer, but this was just one of those methods. Good, that brings me to question 32. Now, what you need to understand when you're dealing with probability, all this should add up to 1, okay? Because probability for something to occur always between 0 and 1. So you have got 0.3 here, you've got 0.25. In order for me to find this orange, rather, I'll have to say that it's not orange. So what is the probability that Jerry chooses a ball that is not orange? So when he chooses a ball that is not orange, first let's determine what is orange, okay? Or not orange, so it's not whatever that is. So it's going to be orange minus the others, okay? But then first we complete the table. So everything here should add up to 1. So in order to complete the table, you'll be saying, wait a minute, 1 minus the sum of that. Because everything should add up to 1. Well, you can leave your answer as a decimal or either as a fraction. Please, that is what is stipulated in your syllabus. All right. Once you do that, let's grab my calculator so that I can get an exact value here. So I have got 1 minus brackets 0.3 plus 0.25. Good. So that's giving me 9 over 25, 9 over 20, which is the same as 0.45. So in here, 0.45. So that will be orange. So what is the probability that Jerry chooses a ball that is not orange? So if he chooses not orange, it's either going to be red or green. Okay, so red is going to choose red or green, and or means you add 0.3 plus 0.25, right? And you can already know what that is. Okay, so if this is giving you 0.45 and this one must give you 0.55, okay, or 11 over 20, okay, then you have your answer as far as that part is concerned. Right, question 33. This brings me to the cumulative frequency curve. Okay, I think this is, if I am not mistaken, about the last question in this particular series. So first of all, they say the mass of 200 tea bags was checked by an inspector in a window factory. The results are shown by a curve, cumulative frequency curve. They are saying use the curve to find the median. Now the median means halfway. So you find median of 200 is 100. So you go and you go to your 100. So maybe I'll bring in a ruler and maybe a line. So maybe I should choose a line. Perhaps I can make it a little bit, and play around like that. So from 100 here, and I'm going to read downwards. Now here the graph is not exactly as it's supposed to be. You get that? So I'm looking for that value down there. Now one of the other things that I want you to understand is, what does one small block represent? So you have, like, for example, between 3 and 3.2. Can you see that? You have got 0.2. No? If you say 3.0 minus 3.2, you get 0.2. You follow? Right, and there are 10 little blocks in there. So when you divide that, you get 0.02. So each block represents 0.02. Does that make sense to you? All right. So that's 10 of them, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 of them. You follow? So where I am, I'm going to say, wait a minute. If I want to know what that is, it's going to be nothing. But here's the big deal I have. Okay? It's not starting from 0 here at the point of 3. So I know my answer should be something 3.2. Does that make sense to you? Right. So my answer will be 3.2. But then from 3.2, how many blocks do I count? I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. And 9 of each block, that is 0.02. So when I multiply that, that should give me my median. Okay? So I'm going to then grab my calculator and I'm going to calculate that median. Okay? So it's going to be 3.2. Then you add 9 little blocks. Each block has 0.02. So that gives me about 3.38. So the median would be 3.38. The median would be anything 3.38. Again, this is going to be a range of answers that is very close to 3.38. The interquartile range, so the median, is 50% of the frequency, okay, of the total frequency. That is why I went to the 100 here, because 100 is half of 200. Okay, and then if you want to finding the interquartile range, the IQR, okay, you must find what is 75% of the values. Okay, I hope you get that. 75%, which is your 3/4, and even as of I'm going to say of frequencies, just so you can get it, of total frequency. I hope you know. Minus, I'm going to take then 25% of total frequency. So that's how you find your interquartile range. So let's go ahead and find what is 75% of our values. Now 75% of of 200. Okay. Now when you grab your calculator and you want to know what is 75% of 200, so just go down here, because I need to use the space that is there. So I'm going to have 75% of 200. 150. So that's 150. And 25% of 200. So I'm going to go back all the way. So 25% of 200. Well, that gives you 50. Okay. So I'm going to go again to 150 using my ruler. So where I've got 150. You can use your ruler. So let me see. So obviously you go 150 all the way here up to there, and then you go down. So I'm going to use that block. I'm interested in that value. That value will be what is that? That value will be my R, or my Q3, or my upper value, okay, upper quartile, and then I want to find 25%, which starts at 50, so 50. And I'm going to do a reading of what is down here. Okay, it's more or less like an estimate. So this, whatever this value here is, let me just change this. So whatever this value here is, let's say this is whatever this value is here. Okay, this is representing my 25% of the values, and I'm going to find what this value is, right? And I'm also going to find out what that value is. I'm going to subtract the y value from the x value. And that's how I find my interquartile range. Okay, so it's a little bit of work that you need to do. Again, if you look at where my x value is for my graph, it's about 3.2. Then you have 1, 2, let's say 2.1 little blocks there. 1, 2.1. So I have, for the value of x, I'll say it's 2.1 times, and then now one small block represents 0.02 times 0.02. Okay, so I just want to know what that little block is there, and then I'll add that, and I hope you understand. I'll add 3.2 to that, because that is, it started most from 3.2. Can you see that? So it's 3.2 plus that little bit there. All right, and I'm going to do the same for the y story. I'm going to say my y would be this 3.4 where it starts. You with me? So it's going to be 3.4, and I'm going to add this blocks of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 blocks, and those 6 blocks, each one is 0.02. So whatever that value and this value is, that's what I'm going to use. If you have a calculator, remember your answer will probably be a range. Okay, so let me just bring in a different color pen here so that perhaps we can find those values using my calculator. So I'm first going to find the x value that I'm saying there. So it's 2.1 times 0.02 plus 3.2. So that gives me about 3.242. So the x value is 2. Let's go back and make sure. 3. Okay, so it's 3.242. And the y value, so it's 3.242. The y value though would be nothing but 3.4 plus 6 of blocks that are 0.02. Okay, so it's about 3.52. So this is 3.52. So I'm going to subtract these two from each other, and that's going to be my interquartile range. Okay, so I'm going to say 3.52. So my interquartile range will be 3.52, and I'm going to take away 3.42. 242. Okay, just more or less, you should arrive at something close to mine. If you don't agree, the answer will be a range. Okay, so it's 3.52. Take away 3.242. Okay, that gives me about 0.278. Okay, so the final answer then should be more or less, I'm trying to find 0.278. Anything in this region, okay, I'll accept. Even if you get 0.28, will also be acceptable. All right. So there's going to be a range in which these answers will be, because it all depends on the accurateness of your curve that you see. It's not passing at exactly the certain point. So that's how you solve this particular question. I know it's a lot of marks for like a 3 marks thing, a lot of work that you need to do, and please take note of that, and also take note of your instructions when you are writing the question paper. And I'm very much interested in one instruction, and that is you must give your answers. If they're not exact, you give your answers to 3 significant figures. That's why you see that I have given answers like money and a lot to 3 significant figures. And this question did not have something with angles, but if there was something with angles, you'd be giving your answer to one decimal place. And when I was dealing with the value of pi, I was using the calculator value, but I could easily have used 3.142. These are the instructions that you are using. So if your answer is not exactly like this because you have been using the 3.142 for the value of pi, you would be fine. Anything would be rounding to that. All right. And then also something else that you probably have seen me do, you have seen me, because of space and the nature of how I work, right? You have seen me answer this line, but do not answer in this margin. Right? Do not answer here. This is where the ticks and the crosses are coming when they mark. All right. So I wish you well for those of you who are preparing for the ordinary level. And use this. I'm going to upload paper 2 that was written on the 10th of January, also a bit later. And then you can use this to prepare for your examinations. All right. So the nice thing is you can always go back. You can pause, look at a question if you have hold of these papers, and then you can compare and study like that. Okay.